Hello everyone, my name is Sarah Strong and I teach at Waterloo Collegiate, and I also have taught in the secondary distance learning program. In this video, I'll be giving some tips for how to screencast effectively. So screencasting is great for live classmates, and it's also great for recording videos ahead of time that you can share with your students. So for example, you could be explaining a lesson, you could be going over an assignment, you could be showing something in your virtual learning environment. There are a lot of possibilities for how you screencast. So there are different options. For example, if you are using Google Meets, you can either share your entire screen or you can just share a window or a tab. And you want to be aware of what these different options are and what they actually mean in terms of what is showing up on the other side for students. So sharing your entire screen is quite risky because anything that pops up on your computer is what students will see. So any notifications from social media, for example, would end up showing on your video, and you obviously don't want that to happen. So sharing full screen is generally not a good idea, and you also just want to make sure that notifications are disabled ahead of time so that they won't pop up anyway. So I also have it in full screen right now, so I don't actually see this top here unless I hover over it, and same thing for the bottom. And the reason I chose that is to make sure that students don't get distracted. So for example, if I have the clock showing and they can see that I'm recording on a Saturday for some reason, or they see that my battery's less than half full and they only like batteries that are full, then that might bother them. I also have a notification here, and that would definitely bother some students if I have a number 1 showing up in red in the corner of my screen. This is, by the way, because I haven't updated my operating system to the newest one yet. I'm going to do that later. So I have it still showing up, but I'm going to do that after the video. So let's say you're doing a lesson and you only want to use one website. In that case, you don't want to share your entire window. You just share a particular tab. And here's the reason why. So let's say I have my toolbar showing. Oh, one other thing is that you can also hide your bookmarks, and that's something I recommend doing. So I only have 2 bookmarks. It's not that bad for me, but bookmarks are distracting. If you're trying to do a lesson and students are reading what your bookmarks are, then they'll get distracted. You also might not want students seeing what they are in the first place. Like if you have social media or a dating website, you might not want that to be visible. So make sure your bookmarks are not there. So let's say you're doing a lesson, for example, and I am going to go to a website. I'm going to go to desmos.com. I'm going to type it in little by little to show you what happens. So DESMOS. So along the way, you can see a lot of search results. So things that I would have searched online would have popped up in here as well. So you want to make sure that you're aware that when you are using a URL bar and you are typing in something, your students can see things that you have searched before, and that could lead to some embarrassments if you have something showing up that you don't want students to see. So anyway, I'm going to go to Desmos. Let's say I'm doing a lesson on graphing. I'm going to graph a parabola, for example. What I recommend doing is doing this ahead of time before you actually hit record screen or share screen, so that students don't actually watch you go to the website, because then things could show up like your browser history. For example, I recently Googled how to play Among Us, and so if I actually click and do it, it can show it up. So you want to make sure that you're not displaying things to your students during a live lesson that you don't want showing up. Also, you might have things like your recent websites showing up. You want to be aware that students can see that unless you're being careful. So for something like Desmos, you want to make sure that you have it ready ahead of time and you don't actually hit share screen until you have this up and running, so that you're minimizing things that can go wrong. Another situation is if you are going back and forth between 2 tabs. Let's say you have your virtual learning environment and you're going through something on your platform, but you're also demonstrating something on a website at the same time. So in that case, you'd want to share your window, but be aware that you will get notifications showing up if they pop up on your side. So that's something you want to be aware of. You also might have your extensions showing, and that could be distracting. It's not that bad for me because I only have a few. I have Screencastify, which is the app I'm using right now. I have a full page screen capture, and I have a mute tab. Oh, hey, notification. These are things that pop up when you're not being careful. So that's all I want to show. So just be aware that when you're screencasting, you are taking a risk, especially on your own personal computer. So just be aware of what you're showing and definitely test it out ahead of time. And disable all notifications if you can so they don't pop up during your lessons.
Thank you, Sarah, for all the wonderful and practical tips on creating an effective screencast. This will be a great help in the DLP. If you want to connect with us, you can email us, follow us on Twitter, or visit the website.